All right, hello friends. Hope you have had fun going outside and shooting some photography and learning a bit about how to take interesting images. Now we're going to learn a bit about how to do some basic editing. So first thing you'll need to do is make sure you get all of your images off of Google Drive, download them to your computer, and put them into your special folder. So your downloads can be found if you click down here. You can see the downloads here. If I click on it, you'll notice that it pops up like this, but I just open it up into the Finder. It'll show me all my files. So I just drag and drop them into my folder. I have my folder here, and you'll notice I've also made a new folder that says Scavenger Hunt. Inside the Scavenger Hunt folder, I have all of my photographs right here, ready to use and ready to work from. So I'm ready to go ahead and start the editing process. Do not start the next step until you have all of this done. So make sure you have your images downloaded to your computer in a folder that says Scavenger Hunt in the folder with your name on it. Now, for the editing process, we're going to be using a new program called Adobe Lightroom. So if you go to your rocket ship, your launch pad, and click over to your programs, all the Adobe programs are here. We're going to be using Lightroom. Now you'll notice that there are two different Lightrooms available here. Unfortunately for this one, this is a Creative Cloud, so unless you have a subscription, we're not going to use this. So for all intents and purposes now, we're going to use the Adobe Lightroom Classic CC. So go ahead and click on this one and open it up. When you open it up, it should look something like this. We'll be in your library tab. For yours, it probably doesn't have anything in here, so you won't see anything on here. What we'll need to do from here is to go ahead and import our photos into Lightroom to be able to look at them. Okay, so I'm going to go down here to the left side, and you'll see that I have the button that says import. You can go ahead and click on that, and it's going to show me my computer over here on the side. Yours might look kind of like this. If it does, then just click on the Macintosh HD, go to Users, find your name, which is right here, and then you should be able to find your files here. So I'm going to go to the desktop, and then Whedon Art is where my folder is, and then Scavenger Hunt, which is my folder here. You'll notice that it pulls up all of my pictures here. For now, I can choose to import photos or to not import them. Right now they're all checked. So that means if I go ahead and click import, it's going to pull in all of these photos. Now, some of these photos are not mine, so I'm going to go ahead and uncheck them so that I don't accidentally use someone else's work. So whichever ones that you uncheck will not be imported into your Lightroom catalog. So these look good. I'm going to go ahead and click import, and you'll notice that it'll start pulling in all of the photos that I just asked to. Some interesting things that you might want to do while you do this import is you can go over here to the import and you can add some keywords. So later, if you want to come search for it or something like that, you can add keywords. So if I click in here, maybe I put scavenger hunt. That way, if I ever want to look at images, it will pull up that scavenger hunt tag, so you can see the keywords down over here, right? You might have to highlight all of the pictures and put scavenger hunt in there, but it will put that information on every single one of your photographs. What I did just then was just highlight all the photos, so you notice one was only highlighted. If I hold the shift key and then click the last one, it'll highlight all of them. Okay, now we are ready to go ahead and develop our photos and start the editing process. So up here on the top right, you're going to click on the develop key. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice that it's going to open up my photos, which it didn't do. So let's go back to library, click on there, develop. Okay, so I have, as you can see on the bottom here, pulled in all of these photos. This is one import, so I've got 27 photos to work from. and it's pulled up the photograph that I'm working from here. Now I can click down here and go to all the different photographs that I want to work from. Or I can just use my arrow keys and kind of move through these. Now, any of the adjustments that you make are only going to adjust for the photographs that are selected here. So where are we going to do this? We're going to look over here on the right side. This is going to be our basic editing tools that we're going to use. The first thing is called our histogram. The histogram is right up here in the top right corner. This histogram can be a little bit confusing, but you'll notice that this is going to control a lot of the things that are inside our photo. So if I click on here, you'll notice that towards the left, it shows me the areas where I have all my blacks, then my shadows, then my exposure, and then my highlights, and then lastly my whites. So I can do a lot of my editing process in here. Now, obviously the photo I'm looking at here is very dark, so I might want to adjust my shadows and my blacks over here. So I'm going to click inside the shadows and I'm going to drag that over and see how much of the information that I can actually pull out. And now, since this was a very dark time, I won't be able to pull out that much, but if I wanted to adjust my exposure, I could click inside the exposure and kind of pull up that a little bit. If I ever go too far and it's too crazy and I want to reset the photo, just go to the bottom right here where it says reset and it'll kick you back to the original photograph. But you have a lot of room to move up here. There are two areas that I would like to pull your attention to as well, which are these little triangles that are right here. You'll notice this triangle is blue and this triangle is gray. This is going to show you areas on your photograph that are doing what we call clipping. Clipping means that it's either way too bright or it's way too dark. So if it's way too bright, it's going to be super, super white on some areas. It's way too dark, it's going to be super, super black. And you don't really want to have either one of those in your photos. So if I just kind of hover over that, you notice how that little red area pops up. That's showing me that that is the only area on the photo that's too overexposed. Now, on the other end, this is where my blacks are, right? So if I click on that one, it's going to show me any areas that are too dark. As for right now, it doesn't look like I have too many, but I just have that kind of overall brightness that's going on right there. So I can adjust this a little bit and have some fun with it. You'll notice what happens though when I pull that exposure up is you're going to start getting a lot of the pixelation inside here. That's because this particular photograph was way too dark whenever it was shot. But this is not technically my photograph, so I'm not going to use it anyways. One thing you might want to do before you get started on editing is actually figure out which photos that you think are pretty good. So this isn't one of mine. This also is not one of mine. Not one of mine. Could be one of mine. I'm not sure. So if I get to a photo that I know for 100% that I've actually taken, which I'm not finding any here. Where are my photos? Okay, I definitely took this photo. So I'm highlighting this photo here. I'm going to simply press the P key, and you'll see how it says flag as pick. So over here, I've got the little flag that popped up on my thumbnail. That means I've chosen to keep this image. So I'm going to go through all of my photos. That's a pretty nice one. That's a pretty nice one. Cool. Not very good. I'll keep that one just for giggles. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I'll take that one too. Cool shot. Interesting. I'll keep Mr. Christopher. I'll keep that one. Keep that one. And lastly, I'll keep that one. So you can see that I have all the ones that I'm going to keep with the little flags on it. So what I can do from here is I can go to over here where it says filter, click on that filter thing, and I can click flagged, and it will hide all those other pictures. It doesn't delete them, it just hides them. So if I want to bring them back, I can go here and click filters off and it'll bring them all back. But for now, I just want to look at the flag ones. I do this because I don't want to spend too much time editing photos that I'm not really going to use. So that is a good thing for you guys to think about doing, especially if you're importing 200, 300 images at a time. You probably only want to edit maybe 10% of them, so around 20 or so. But have fun with it, create some cool stuff. So once I pulled in this photo, I'm going to look at my histogram first. Right here, it's pretty balanced. I would say it's a little bit overexposed, pretty bright over here. So I might bring my exposure down just a little bit to bring out that shadow a little bit more. Okay, make it a little bit easier on the eyes. So under basic over here are going to be some of the other tools that we're going to adjust. So I want you to kind of stick to some specific ones, but you can experiment and have a little bit of fun with it if you want. For right now, we're going to look at exposure. We're going to look at contrast. We're going to look at vibrance and saturation. Okay, so for now, I would adjust my exposure. You notice that my exposure already is at a negative 0.48. That's because I adjusted the exposure up here in my histogram. So that's going to adjust my exposure right here if I do it. Also, if I was to adjust my shadows, you'll notice how if I start adjusting there, my shadow key over here has been adjusted. So I can use my histogram or I can adjust it down here and kind of have a little bit of fun with it. Second one I'm going to want to look at is going to be my contrast, which is right here. Contrast, again, is going to be the difference between your lights and darks. So right now I have a pretty big difference between my bright areas up here and my shadows, so I might push that contrast just a little bit more. And you'll notice that as I push it, it's going to start kind of popping out a little bit more. If I take the contrast out, you see how flat the image becomes, and I can't see so many of the textures, so I want to just add a bit of that contrast just to give me a little bit more of the texture popping out. So I think right there looks pretty good. You can adjust your white levels, your black levels if you want. Now we're going to go down here to saturation. Saturation is going to be kind of the intensity of the color that we have in here. I shot the grass outside. It's not summertime, so there's not very green, but I do have some greens and yellows that are in here that I might want to pull out. You have to be careful with your saturation. Okay, if I wanted to, I could take the saturation and I could suck it all out, and that gives me a black and white image. Now, if I go the opposite and I push that saturation, it's going to give me some god-awful, ugly colors that don't belong there. So you want to make sure to be a little bit careful with saturation, especially in photography. You don't want it to look unrealistic or crazy. So I'm just going to take that saturation on this photo and I'm going to kick it up a little bit to make that color pop out. So maybe right there gives me nice color tone inside here. My shadow still looks pretty good. And then I'm really focusing on the texture of the grass here. So this was the photo I took about texture. So I wanted to really see the textures that I had on the grass there. So pretty cool. That might be all of the editing that I do on this photograph. Once I'm done, I don't have to do anything else to it. I don't have to save it or anything. It's already adjusted it. So I just move on to the next photo. And again, here I can work with my histogram. I can see if I'm clipping anywhere. You notice on the lights right there how it turns red. That means those areas are clipping way too much. So I might need to bring my whites down a little bit. So you can see what a little bit of that difference that makes, brings down that brightness. On this one, again, I might just push that saturation a little bit just to make the color pop. And then the vibrance, you know, I might push that a little bit more too just to make it pop a little bit. Oh, that's way too much. Kind of having fun with it here. All right, so there we go. This is the original photo I went back to, but going to kind of kick it up a little bit more again and have fun. So you're going to want to do this with all of the photographs that you have down here. If you have any photos that you think might look good in black and white, We can also add a black and white filter on there. So let's say, let's go with this one. Maybe I want to see what this photo looks like in black and white. Right here where it says treatment, right now it's in color, I can click to black and white, and it will change it to black and white. And again, I can adjust my exposure. I can work with my shadows, my darks, and kind of mess around and have fun with it. If I don't like it, I can just go back to reset and then kick it back. A couple tools that I didn't show you guys that you can work with too. Obviously, we have a crop tool. So if you look up here to tools, crop is the hotkey R. So I could push R, and you'll see that it'll give me the border on my cropping here. So I can adjust this any way that I want. I can move the photo around and just kind of have fun with it. Maybe I want to give this a little bit of a symmetrical composition here. So there we go. Now if I want to go back and I don't like that, I just click that R again, and it's going to save all that information on the outside. So you can always go back and make some adjustments. So maybe something like that. I could also rotate the image. So if I go to photo here, I could rotate it to the left if I want, and just kind of play with it and see which way I maybe would really like it to look. So that's kind of intimidating look right there. So you can kind of have fun with it as you're working. So go ahead and do that with all of your photos. Go through these and edit them and have fun, create some cool stuff. Let's see what he looks like here. It's kind of fun. Cropping, so I push that R key. Let's see if I can make this interesting. Oh, that's kind of cool. I need to experiment with this a little bit more and have some kind of fun with it. But take a few minutes, adjust all of your photos, edit them, have some fun with it. If you got any questions, please let me know. I'll help you. Once you're done, we got one more thing to do. We need to go ahead and take all of these that we have edited, and we need to export them. So I'm going to make sure that I click on the first image. I'm going to hold my shift key, and I'm going to click the last image, and you see how all of these images are highlighted. So when I go to export them, it's going to export all of my photos. So I go up here to File, I go down to Export, and I click on there. This is going to ask me the location that I want to export these to. So right now it's going to export to the desktop. I don't want it to go to the desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and switch that and change it to the specific folder that I have inside the desktop. So if I go to same folder as original folder, since I've already put them in the original one, it will put it in the original folder. Now I'm going to put this in a subfolder because I always put my edits somewhere separate. I don't want to go over the original photos. I always save my original photos and then I have a new one. So I'm going to call these edits. You can rename them to a custom name. You can keep the same name if you want. I might do custom name sequence here. This will put them in order, and I'll call it scavenger hunt. I start with number 1, and then once I got all that information, I just go ahead and click export, and it's going to export. You see the menu up here, exporting. So if I go to my original folder, right, which is Weed and Art, and I've got scavenger hunt, you'll see that I have all of my original photos, and then if I go down, I've got my folder that says edits right here. So if I click in this edits folder, I have all of the photos and they are in the way that I've edited them. So let's look at the difference between this one and the original photo, which is right here. Okay. So which one do you guys think is the better photo? For me, I think the one on the right is a little bit better. I pushed the darkness a little bit. I added a little bit of saturation to make the color pop out. But those subtle differences, those small little differences, those changes that you make can have a big impact on the way your images look when they're done. Okay. So once you have edited your photos, you should have your top 5 at least. If you got more than that, cool. Go ahead and submit those to Google Classroom, and you'll be done with the basic editing in Lightroom. Last thing you'll have to do in Lightroom, obviously, is to go ahead and quit. When I go to quit, I'll just go up to Lightroom and quit Lightroom. It will probably ask you if you're going to back up your catalog. For right now, just click skip this time. Okay, so I click on that, and then I am done with Lightroom for the day. So let me figure out how to stop my video here. Hey, there we go. All right, stop.